Limerick Pride, the podcast, sponsored by Limerick City Community Radio. An all-new storytelling podcast that's going to shed some light on many LGBTQ topics while bringing together people of all ages and backgrounds, with unique storytelling from raising an LGBTQ child, growing up in the traveller community to queer culture, in a not been done before podcast with hard-hitting, raw and honest and frank discussions to be heard from Limerick's very own, celebrating Pride in Limerick's own way. Streaming every Sunday night at 8 on www.mixcloud.com/Limerick Pride Pod. Welcome to episode 3 of Limerick Pride, the podcast, sponsored by Limerick City Community Radio, your city, your station, your voice. This week I am joined by a familiar voice that people would know on the Limerick Pride scene, Rachel Pryor, who was here today to speak to us all about Amach Lydia. Rachel, how are you?
Good, Ronan. How are yourself?
I'm great. Thanks very much for coming into studio, COVID times.
Thanks for having me in.
No problem. I think we'll just get straight into it and discuss who you are and what you do. People will know you from being on the scene with Limerick Pride for performing in over the years.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. I'd say I started off performing at Pride in 2012 for the Climax party in Dolan's. And I remember just wearing this big rainbow, see-through kind of dress.
Yeah.
And then I did 2013, there was a social mixer, and then Pride Fest in 2014 as well.
It's quite sad to see it virtual, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's not the same thing. The buzz and just the whole day itself. It's a total different thing. I love to interact with a crowd, you see, and that's the kind of the element that you miss.
You're not here to talk about that. You are here to talk about Amach Lydia.
Yeah, it actually means out and with God. A lot of people ask us what it actually means. Yeah, and that's a group that started up in autumn 2019, just by a number of LGBTQ plus Christians. They just got together in Dublin and talked about a need for a fully affirming Christian community, because there isn't really any in Ireland. It's kind of a need for a safe space where faith can be expressed and just your God-given talents celebrated without any fear, of your identity being questioned. So then in autumn 2020, it saw the beginning of Amach Lydia West, which would be the group I'm in, and that just kind of caters for Galway, Clare, Limerick and surrounding areas. And there's 7 monthly meetings so far. We met on Zoom most of the time because of COVID. And then we actually had a get-together in Portumna recently, and it was just food, a bit of prayer, music, just really, really informal. Yeah, it's a fully affirming space for worship and fellowship as well. Because a lot of times in churches, you don't get that full recognition. It's more of being tolerated rather than being fully affirmed, if that makes sense, So that's what makes this group very, very different to what's out there at the minute. It's very much needed, I think, in Ireland.
Is there much of a want for a group like this, or is there a need for a group like this?
I think there is, because we meet as a whole, so the whole lot of Amach Lydia West and the group in Dublin and around the country. There could be 17 to 20 of us in one go on Zoom, which is kind of a lot when you think of sometimes you feel you're the only one, that's LGBT and Christian and there's no one else out there. So just to see that kind of group shows that there is still a need for it, And I'm sure there probably is people out there that want to be a part of something, but they just have not found that space yet.
Yeah. How did you first come across this group?
It was actually Brendan, my friend. Everyone would know Brendan as well from the scene, but he told me about it as well, and I just started to go along to that. Yeah,
I'm just curious because I've never heard of this group until I joined the Pride Committee.
Yeah,
I am gay. I wouldn't say I am a practicing Catholic. I wouldn't say I practice any religion at all. So that's why I really wanted to meet with you today, just to get an understanding of what you do, and just because it's not that I don't believe, it's that I don't think I have found what's right for me yet.
Completely, yeah.
And I'm very interested in this concept of Amach Lydia, and I think it may be something that I could find, because
absolutely.
I think it's hard to say that you don't believe in God, but you believe in other things, because how can you believe in one and not believe in the other?
Well, for me, I think it's all the one energy anyway. I think that the problem is that people, you might have Christians against Muslims or Muslims against whatever, rather than just kind of respecting everybody's experience and belief. It would be a much peaceful place. It's kind of who is anybody to tell someone else you shouldn't believe in God, or you shouldn't believe in this, shouldn't believe in that. Everybody has a reason for believing in what they believe, And for me, I'm very spiritual. I'm open to I love to meditate. I love to kind of hear about other people's experiences as well and beliefs.
Yeah,
I think that's important. But with Amach Lydia, it's I know myself and Brendan and a couple of others have felt that we can't, if we go to church, say, in Ireland, I always used to have anxiety. I'd always be on edge, because I knew that at some point people either know that I'm lesbian, or just people that are going to question, do you have a boyfriend, do you have kids, do you have this, do you have that, and it's going to come up. And I was thinking, so I could never fully relax, ever. At times, there was one church, I asked them, could I sing worship? They were looking for volunteers, by the way, looking for singers and whatever else. So I volunteered my service. I wasn't allowed to sing worship, because I'm a lesbian, basically. And if I'm in a relationship, that's a no-no. And I asked to be baptised as well, and that was also no. And like, little did I know, like, God wants everybody to be baptised, no matter who you are. And so for them stopping you doing that is that is condemning as well. So that's what I mean about Amacladia. Like, we believe that being gay is not a sin, whereas churches do believe that it is. Because like, you could debate this topic, it's such a touchy kind of topic, and I just feel like they kind of take like being gay and put it into a separate box, to everything else. They want to really force that, like, that's the big main sin. They kind of separate it a lot from other stuff.
Because a lot of people in the LGBTQI community would be against the workings of Amacladia, wouldn't they?
They would, yeah, absolutely. But I think it's because, again, they've been hurt by churches, they've been hurt by Christians, and I completely get it. Like, I completely understand, and like, that's expected, because straight away when you say that you're like, it's a Christian group, alarm goes off and people are thinking, what's going on? They're going to shove this down our throats, they're going to do this, do that. But you have to just come along to see for yourself, what it's about. But I do totally get it. Like, it's just a mistreatment really of churches. Yeah. That has kind of caused them to think that.
Would you have come from a religious background yourself?
No, like, my family wouldn't be practicing Catholics either. Like, I did go to church as a child, but do you know when your parents tell you, like, you need to go down to the church now on a Sunday? Yeah. But it was never forced, like, it was never anything. And I knew coming out to my family wouldn't be a problem. I knew they'd accept and they love me, and they did, luckily. Yeah, I don't know how, like, it's crazy, because how I became a Christian was through Destiny's Child. You might think that is mad, like, but I remember going to see him. They're my favourite female group, like, and they did a gospel medley at their show, and I was like, wow, what is this about? So that kind of intrigued me first. And then I heard him speaking on the radio in Ireland, and they were saying, being a Christian isn't actually like a seasonal thing like Christmas time, and it's actually a lifestyle, like it's every day, And at the time, I think I was going through something, I was a little depressed. I was thinking, maybe this could be for me. This could be a saviour for me. And I started to actually get into it a lot. And as true as God, my life did start to change for a positive, which is crazy. Like, it started to work for me, and I was thinking, wow, this is a thing, But that's kind of where it came from to begin with.
Have you always known your sexuality, and then were you struggling with faith as well as struggling with your sexuality?
Yeah, so primary school, I knew something was up.
Okay. With your faith or with your sexuality?
With my sexuality, yeah.
Okay.
But you see, I went to school in the 90s.
Of course.
So, like, it was never, ever, ever spoken about. Yeah. Nobody ever mentioned the word gay anywhere. When you look at, the times back then to now, my cousins and all came out at, 12 and 13. Do you know, I was 25 when I told my family. Like, that's how long it took, the journey. And now there's pride in schools, and I think it's amazing. Do you know, to see is pride everywhere. There's pride. There's, same-sex couples in movies, programmes, and it's just come on so much. Like, it's just I think it's a totally different world now. Yeah. So first of all, I didn't think I was normal, and I'd have kind of crushes on girls, and I was thinking, what is this about? And I just thought it was a phase, because you'd be reading stuff as well, and people writing into magazines saying that, I'm attracted to somebody, is this normal? And I'd be reading that going, they're saying it's a phase, it must be a phase, it's grand, it's just something.
And there's no representation on media either, on TV at that point.
Absolutely nothing, no. And of course my parents didn't understand, nobody really understood what it was. Even I didn't know what it was, because it was never spoken about. So I thought I wasn't normal. So I suffered immensely really with my mental health, because I just kind of held myself back for years because of it. Yeah. I didn't know how to accept it, or how to what exactly it was. I didn't know what to speak about. And I'd say there probably was other LGBT people in school, but sure, they're not going to say it either. So you kind of felt a bit alone,
Yeah, and it's not like you could point them out.
That's it, because nobody would tell you they were. I have friends now who I went to school with who told me years later. And I was thinking, Jesus, at the time.
If only you knew,
if only we could have helped each other, because I felt so, alone.
I've spoken to so many people who said, and even myself, coming out, what it takes on your mental health to come out, it's fucking scary, isn't it? Honest to God.
Would you have grown up in, a religious home yourself, or?
No, I wouldn't. Like yourself, my mum wouldn't have pushed me every week to go to mass. My mum would be quite religious, but only in the later years, because as you know, my mum wasn't well, and I think she found hope.
That's it.
In something. Yeah. And we always have these discussions back and forth. We have them most weekends, it's funny. My mum said to me, "You're gay." Before
Before you even said it.
But I knew something was wrong. Do you know what I mean? I felt I had a very tough time coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think in the later years she's found solace and hope.
Yeah. That's great.
And protection. Yeah. I think protection is the big thing that she's found. In that sense, I would be lucky that I don't come from a very Catholic background. But I do have friends that would do. I've had friends that are shunned because
I think it's awful, like,
because of their sexuality, and it's 2021, like, do you know what I mean? And it's still happening, you know, in Ireland, you know, even recently with the burning of the flags on in Waterford, you know, the Panty Bar, which we're going to get into more next week with our special guest.
Yeah.
Both fucking hell, like, do you know what I mean?
No, there's no need of it, like, but that's why I think even like bringing a group like this out, it kind of brings hope along with it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just to have something, like you were saying about having a faith, like your mother even finding like solace in something. Like, I think people need something to believe in, like, really.
Of course.
And it's hard to believe in this, like, it's hard to believe in God when all people have ever done is shun you or tell you can't do this, you can't do that, or, do you know, like the experience I've had, I shouldn't even be Christian with the experiences that I've had over the years with other Christians and other churches. Like, I walked away from this, like, so many times. But the funny thing is I always call it, like, and it's even in the Bible about, like, when you try and get away, God always pulls you back. And it's mad, Ronan, but I feel like whenever I try, I could be gone for 2 years from this faith, from praying, from whatever. And there's always something, I start meeting Christians or something happens that it pulls me back into it again. Yeah. And that's why I think, like, everybody has a calling in their life, you know, really, really they do. Like, and it's just the kind of abuse that you've been getting from people. But at the end of the day, like God aren't people.
Yeah.
You know, like, and people that actually use God's name to mistreat somebody else, that's not God, like.
Yeah.
That's the enemy. Do you know, if it's coming from a bad place, that's not a godly thing, like, or like a Jesus mentality, you know.
What does Amach Lydia hope to achieve in the future? Yeah,
we just hope to continue, like, to grow as a group and to open more doors to acceptance of LGBTQ Christians and to be allowed fully give our gifts in Christian settings, you know, and be fully affirmed and equal.
Do you find more people in recent years have come to Amach Lydia for help or support?
Not yet, I don't think, because it's still kind of fairly new and it's just trying to get out. I think maybe, hopefully, after the service.
So you talked there about a service, and we should say that something special happened this morning that was aired on RTE. What was aired?
So it was actually a queer affirming worship that was aired, which is, for me, is monumental really to happen in Ireland. It's been coming a long time, like, and I think it just goes to show that Ireland is very progressive. So I'm sure this has been planned weeks ahead. Mm-hmm. How has preparation for this morning's Pride service been? It's been amazing, actually. We went up to Dublin for a couple of Saturdays for rehearsals with the band and stuff. And it just gelled together. Like, the first rehearsal it's like it was meant to be, you know, that kind of way. Everybody just, like, really flowed very nicely together. Yeah. So we have the songs down and everything, and it seems to be going well. What are your hopes for this episode, and what do you hope that RT airing this episode would achieve? Yeah, so the expectation, well, first of all, our mission is to glorify God. That's our main thing, you know, to do God's work. And then secondly would be, like, to bring people closer to faith. And just to have, like, other Christians and churches who are kind of on the fence about this whole thing, that they wouldn't, like, want to know about who we are, and just to be respected, I think, by other, like, groups of Christians, you know, and that it is okay to be a person who identifies as LGBTQIA+ and also Christian, like, the two go together, that they can go together. What would you say to people who are struggling with their faith and sexuality? Well, I would say, just from a personal experience, like, faith for me has been life-changing. It's been an absolute saviour. Like, I mean, I felt suicidal I don't know how many times in my life. Wow. Especially because of sexuality, and it's just not accepting myself. And part of it was because of my faith. I felt like I couldn't be. I used to pray, would you believe, and it sounds sad, but I used to pray that God would either take away my sexuality or take me away, because it was just so difficult, you know. And I always thought, I can't be both of them, so you need to take one of them away, or, you know. And he never took either, you know. He didn't take my life or my sexuality. So it just came to a point where I had to accept myself. So I would say it's just transformative. And if you're struggling, you're not alone. It can be scary to go public with it, but, you know, life is too short to hold yourself back from living, like, the life God has planned for you because of fear of what others will say or think. And I've learned it the hard way, really. You know, you need to stand up for who you are and what you believe. Do you think when you finally found Amach Lydia that you could breathe again? I do, because it's the first time being in a group of, like, being in a Christian setting that I actually felt completely comfortable. Like, there was no kind of anxiety. There was no kind of, you know, are they going to start questioning me? Like, am I going to be allowed to do this? Like, I'm part of a worship team. You know, the Sunday service was being part of a worship team, being allowed to actually sing. You know, it's just, it's just amazing, really. So it is the first time in my life that I actually do feel fully like affirmed and fully accepted and comfortable in a group.
Are you happy?
In myself, in my life.
Yeah?
Yes.
With your sexuality?
I am, definitely. And I think, to be honest with you, I don't think I fully accepted myself, like fully, until we got that yes vote in 2015.
Yeah.
Because I was involved in that campaign, and I think that was a huge... Because you kind of think to yourself, like, if you can do this, if you can go door to door, and you shouldn't have to do that, but it was, at the time, we had to do it. But I thought to myself, if I can do that, I really can fully accept who I am. And I think it was at that moment when it was a yes is when I started to kind of relax a bit more and feel like we were kind of accepted by society in Ireland. It was a relief, wasn't it? Like, really.
You watch that back and you think, hot damn, don't you?
I know.
You know, like a small little country done that and changed
as well.
The world.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like Ireland were actually the first to do it by like referendum.
Yeah.
And then other countries followed suit then. But I just thought, like, a Roman Catholic country, like, it was just, it's just a legacy, like, it's history.
Of course. And what you said there about knocking on the door to door, it always reminds me of that advert. And then seeing people coming home to vote.
Yes, that was huge as well. Yes. But that's probably what sealed it, to be honest. But that's, like, that was the lovely thing about it, is that people made it their business to get home because they knew how, like, huge this was for Ireland, like. Yeah,
groundbreaking. Yeah. Where can people go to find support from Amach Dia?
So you can contact Amach Dia on social media. We have a Facebook page or Instagram. So it's AMACHLEDIA. You can just send a message on there. We'd love to kind of meet with you and support you, because everybody's welcome in our group. We don't condemn or, not allow you to do certain things. We're very open, and it's very informal too.
Of course. I should also say that the Limerick Pride social medias will also point you in the right direction.
Yeah, you can do so, yeah.
So you don't just have to message Amach Dia if you forget the spelling or, or you... Because I'm sure there's some people out there that know that there is an organisation out there like this, but don't know what it is or don't know what to look for or don't know what to search for on Google. Yeah. So just hit Limerick Pride up. Yeah. Hit Amach Dia up. I'm sure that they will...
point you in the right direction, yeah.
Hook you up with the big G himself.
Yeah, I always say to people, be careful, like, attacking me because, JC, me and him are besties.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. Like. We might do a song together,
Yeah. So if people are interested in seeing what all you guys do, I believe there is something happening on the 4th, which happens to coincide with the swim parade in Limerick City.
Exactly, yeah. We decided to meet in Limerick this time because it was just fitting, to see the rainbow parade and all that. We'll just be there, a casual gathering again, just some food, like a bit of a picnic. And if anybody wants to get involved, or can feel free and just come over. Anybody can come along and chat.
Perfect. So dates and times, or date is the 4th, but time is to be confirmed as well as venue.
Yes.
So just keep a watch on the Amach Dia Facebook page.
Amach Dia, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Limerick Pride official accounts as well will share that as well on their socials. Yeah. Rachel, thanks very much for coming into the studio to talk to me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I've had such an insight. I think it's funny because I've been dreading this. I've been dreading this
really?
episode. I really have.
Why was that?
Because like I said to you to start the episode, I wouldn't be a big believer. And I was afraid in case of stepping on toes in a sense. But I wanted to stay true to this podcast because I've always said that this podcast is an episode where people could come on and talk openly about whatever they want, as long as they've got a story to tell and they're in the LGBTQI plus community. Come along and share your story. And I think with religion and faith is something that has been, because I did grow up I did go to a Catholic school. I went to a Christian Brothers school. I can safely say from 3rd year, I refused to go to a religion class because it's just something I didn't believe in. Because I think at that point I was struggling and I didn't believe. But it's nice to have a conversation with someone about it all who knows their sexuality and knows their religion and has found faith and answers. And I think that's the big word is answers, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. And actually I had a similar experience in school, whereas I would have stopped doing religion as well. I think, for the last 2 years of secondary school.
Yeah.
I just refused to do it.
And I didn't provide an answer. You know, I just wouldn't show up to class. And I remember for years, I knew I was gay and I was afraid to say that word to anyone out loud. You know, and I think saying it in school to a religion teacher, I'm gay. I've never ever done it.
Yeah.
I passed her on the street now when I'm wearing my proud face mask, and now she knows why I wasn't in her class. But, you know, I didn't come out until third year. It was my junior third year when I came out in school. And it was that point when I stopped going to class prior to coming out. And yeah, I don't know. I think if I had the answers or had faith back then, you know, I think I would have been in tune with myself, but I wasn't. And I think that's why I struggled with coming up with a concept for this episode. But I'm so happy I did.
That's great.
I think I've gathered a very big insight. And
like I got rebaptized anyway, even though the church wouldn't baptize me. So I gathered two of my Christian friends, Brendan and David, and we actually went to the back of Brendan's house and they baptized me in the river there. You know, because as you see, you know, John the Baptist used to baptize people in rivers, you know.
That's what
you kind of don't need a church to be baptized. You really don't.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, who says that you need a church? Like, you know how it is in schools where you can't make your communion until you get christened. Who decided all of that shit?
That's what I mean.
You know, like,
it's just all tradition as well. Yeah, but times have changed. Like, we're living in a different Ireland now. We have people of all different. It's multicultural. You kind of have to speak about every religion in school. You can't just talk about Catholic religion. What about the Muslim child that's there? Like, or people of all different faiths, like, or Hinduism or whatever it is. You need to educate children from that. It's the same with racism. You need to educate them from that age. Growing up together, you need to tell them this is what they believe in, and that's okay as well. You know, it's about respecting people and just allowing people to. It's like live and let live. Allow people to kind of believe what they believe in.
Yeah, I think I've always said as well, if I ever had kids, that I would wait to christen them.
Same.
Until they can get to that point where they're ready to say,
I agree.
I want to be Catholic. You know, I want to be gay and Catholic. You know, yeah, I think
that's what I think as well, definitely. Because like I don't agree with institutions. Like, I'm not religious. There's a difference between like being religious and actually having faith. They're two different things. Like, religion is what's caused all of this in the first place. Causes conflict between people. But I have a personal relationship with God. That's what I say. Like, I'm non-denominational. I'm not under any institution. I'm not Catholic. I'm not anything. I'm just Christian, you know. And I wanted it that way. Because I'm not a practicing Catholic because I don't believe in their teachings, you know, and believe in what they've done over the years. So, yeah, I just have my personal faith. And luckily, I accepted myself as both.
Which was probably the hardest thing you ever had to do.
It was, but it came to the point where it's like an epiphany or something. You just think to yourself, like, God obviously wants you to accept yourself.
Yeah.
It's the most liberating thing. Do you know what I mean? It really is liberating once you do it.
Limerick Pride, the podcast, sponsored by Limerick City Community Radio. An all-new storytelling podcast that's going to shed some light on many LGBTQ topics while bringing together people of all ages and backgrounds with unique storytelling from raising an LGBTQ child, growing up in the traveller community to queer culture. In a Not Been Done Before podcast with hard-hitting, raw and honest and frank discussions to be heard from Limerick's very own, celebrating pride in Limerick's own way. Streaming every Sunday night at 8 on www.mixcloud.com/Limerick Pride Pod.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I